Today we're learning about the point-slope form of a linear equation. This is the second of three forms. We already know y equals mx plus b, which was the slope-intercept. Now remember, it was called the slope-intercept because m told us the slope of the line and b told us the y-coordinate for the y-intercept. Similarly, the name of this form tells us what information we can expect to see. It's called the point-slope form. So we should expect that the equation contains a point that the line passes through and the slope. So the slope is m, just like it was before, but since this point is any point along the line, not specifically the point at the y-intercept, like in the slope-intercept form, the point is represented as x1, y1. So it's any pair of x and y values for a point along the line. Let's take a look at how we can make use of this form. First, we're asked to graph a line. And I've given you a set of steps above. Identify the slope in the given point, graph the given point, and from that point, use the slope to make all the points across the graph. Draw the line. And of course, we'll label as we always do. So as I get started for the first time, it's a good idea to write the formula right above your equation so that you can see what's going on. And one of the first things you should notice is that m is sitting right here. So the slope of this line is 1/3. So we already know that when we go to graph, the line will go up 1 and right 3 from whatever point we start at. So the million-dollar question is, what's the x1, y1? What point do we start graphing from? Please notice that the minus sign is actually part of the formula. So when I go to pull the x value in the y value, the signs will be opposite what I see in the equation. So if it's x minus as part of the formula, only the 1 is left to be the x value. Since it's y minus, only the 2 is left to be my y value. So this line will start at the point 1, 2. From there, I'll follow my slope up 1 and right 3 until I run out of space, and then down 1 and left 3 until I run out of space to the other side. I can draw my line all the way across my graph, putting arrows at the ends as we've always done. Now instead of labeling the y-intercept, I'm going to label the point I first used, the point 1, 2. Particularly in this case, I can't really even tell what the y-intercept is, so I'm glad I don't have to label it. And then, as always, I need to pick one other point along the line. You can choose any point you want. I'm going to choose 4, 3, because it happens to be the next point to the right, but you could have chosen one of those points off to the left. We also want to be able to go the other way. Given an equation, I want to be able to graph the line. Given a line, I want to be able to write the equation. And in a lot of ways, this is actually almost easier than the y equals mx plus b. I do have to be able to clearly see 2 points along the line. If I zoom in on this area, I can see if I was at this first point on the left and I wanted to go to the second point on the right, I would have this change in y and this change in x. So if I look at that, my change in y just goes from 4 down to 3. So my change in y is a -1. My change in x goes from a -1 to a +2. So my change in x is a total of 3 spaces. So if I'm thinking of my slope as the change in y divided by the change in x, change in y was -1, change in x is 3, I can see that my slope is -1/3. Now, if 2 different people do this problem, they might come up with 2 different lines. When you're doing it alone, you only have to give one answer, but I'm going to give both so that we can see what they would be. So the first option for how we might write this equation, if I'm looking at y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, sometimes it helps to start by writing down the form. And then I remember which things I need to replace. Well, the m is going to come out, and the slope that we calculated of -1/3 will go in its place. If I'm choosing this point, 2, 3, The x value is 2, so I'm going to take out x1 and replace it with a 2. The y value is 3, so I'll take out y1 and I'll replace it with a 3. And we have our first option for how we might have chosen to write the equation. Someone else might have decided to use the point -1, 4. That would be fine as well. We're going to start out the same way. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm going to replace that m with -1/3, just like we did before. This is the same line, so it has the same slope. Now my x1 is being replaced with a -1, and my y1 is being replaced with a 4. Now, most of my equation is fine as is, but I never want to leave a double negative, minus a negative. So that's going to switch to a plus. So my final answer, if I choose this particular point, is y minus 4 equals -1/3 times x plus 1. Two different students could give two different answers, and both would be marked correct because they both describe the same line.